A full-time soldier and warriors on the water, we're joined today by members of the Army Outdoor Team, Josh Watkins and Daniel Hodge. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this episode on the OneCast.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's going to be a bad day.
Welcome back to the OneCast, folks. My name is Trey, joined with Ben and Pete. To my left, your right. We want to take this time to thank you guys so much for the support and plug that shameless plug, right?
Yeah, exactly. Shameless plug.
Hey, check it out. If you want to join the snagless revolution, head on over to onecastfishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast to save 10% at checkout and keep supporting small businesses here in America. We really appreciate it. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to the guests we have on here, a professional angler in the United States Army. It's a job I wish I could always have. But before we get there and bring them in, I do have to say, I appreciate everyone, and we all appreciate everyone who stepped by the booth last week at the Bassmaster Classic. Great meeting you all, and hopefully we'll be seeing you all again next year at the Classic, which has been released. It's in Tulsa, so it's going to be out in Oklahoma. So
that's right.
Be a little dry for us, but we'll make it happen.
We're not going to talk about the results because we're actually recording this the week before, so we don't know who won yet, but we do appreciate everybody stopping by. It was great to see you, and I can say that before it's even happened. So thank y'all. There might be some stickers floating around.
Pete, we could have played that off. They would never.
I'm too honest. But there might be some stickers floating around for the OneCast. The first ones went out with some orders last week. So if you do order for OneCast Fishing and use that code, those stickers are going in the boxes, and then we're going to have a bunch of them at the Classic to hand out to folks. So hopefully you stopped by and got one. But I'm excited for today and talking to these guys. And maybe if I knew I could have bass fished in the Army, I might have signed up when I was in high school.
Well, let's talk about that. So, folks, we had Mr. Master Sergeant Josh Watkins and Sergeant First Class Daniel Hodge joining us today, members of the Army Outdoor Team. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Man, we are doing great. This is an opportunity that we think is going to benefit everybody listening and watching this show. Just want to jump right into it. So, I didn't mess up any of your names, all right? So we got Josh, we got Daniel. You guys want to break it down and introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, so Sergeant First Class Daniel Hodge. I'm from Colorado originally, moved to Virginia. That's where I kind of got into the outdoor side. Started fishing, started hunting, joined the Army. I've been in the Army for 15 years, and I'm excited to be on the team. I've been on the outdoor team for about a year now, and it's been amazing. The best job in the Army.
You don't say.
Yeah.
That's not the sarcastic. I got the best job in the Army. That's really, I got the best job.
No, that's too cool, man.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks guys for allowing us some time to pitch our mission and what we're about. But yeah, my name is Josh Watkins. I'm originally from Southern Illinois, not much down there. But I grew up hunting, fishing my entire life. Like you hear all these outdoorsmen and women like, oh yeah, I've been doing it since I was a little bitty. But honestly, when it comes to like running trout lines and jugging with my grandpa and my dad, that's what I grew up fishing. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, high school fishing wasn't a big thing. It was either basketball, baseball, football, fishing. High school fishing just wasn't there. So I remember, sitting in shop class, looking at my watch saying, hey, bud, to my buddies to my left and right, like, hey, we got time before basketball practice. Let's go hit the deer stand, So, whenever I reflect back on my younger years, I was more of a deer hunter, turkey hunter, big game outdoorsman then. It wasn't until I got to, like I was talking to you, Trey, I was stationed at Fort Bragg for like 10 years. And I got into fishing, like bass fishing, and joined a couple of club tournaments there. And I was like, man, this is awesome. This is what I need. Because, every high schooler like misses their, last basketball game running out, like that, just that competition feeling. Mm-hmm. And you guys fish tournaments. So like every boat launch, you're sitting behind the steering wheel. You're like, let's go.
There's nothing about that feeling as you're blasting off.
Yeah.
Like you're
I'm telling
so
you.
motivated, so positive. You're looking forward to the day. Now 8 hours later, you can talk.
Yeah.
We can look at the sad
I mean,
faces.
it's
Trust me.
close to being a NASCAR driver as I'm ever going to get. Okay. So I love,
Right.
gentlemen, fire up your
And,
engines.
you know, I never put that together until you just did, Josh, that, man, it's a lot like running out on that field in high school for football. Like, it's the same feelings in the morning as you're getting rods ready and you're getting dropped, you know, back down the ramp and you launch the boat and that anticipation's building and that game plan's going through your head and you've already caught 5 8-pounders before you even call your number. And, you know, everything works out perfect. So,
Oh, yeah, it's always perfect.
I that's like, you could say nothing else and I'm happy because I never put that together, but it really does fill that gap that I think as a competitor, if you played sports growing up or anything, that there's no other way to get it, really.
Yeah, I'm adrenaline junkie. Like, I love it. Like, I don't sit still. My wife will tell you, like, I'm 100 mile an hour. But yeah, so that's a little bit where I started. I joined the Army, you know, right after high school as a 31 Bravo military police officer. I was stationed at Fort Bragg for 10 years. And then I was a drill instructor, and then I just finished up being a first sergeant at Fort Leonard Wood. Until whenever I got accepted to, you know, join the outdoor team. You know, I've been stationed at Fort Bragg, Fort Leonard Wood, Hawaii, just to name a few. While I was in Hawaii, I got to work on an off deep sea fishing charter on the weekend. So, like, it was awesome. Like, my career, like, whenever you look back, you're like, because I got 2 years left. Like, my whole plan is 20 years and I'm done. I want to go chase another passion, another career field. But when you look back, like, I've done so much in 18 years when it comes to, like, what Josh wants to do when it comes to outdoors. And the people I've been able to network and connect with has just been unreal. So
that's fantastic. So you said you were from Southern Illinois. Daniel, where'd you say you were from again?
So I'm originally from Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
Family, we moved to Virginia for 11 years before I joined the Army.
Okay.
Whereabouts in VA?
Central Virginia, Lynchburg.
Okay, yeah.
Area?
Yeah. I lived in Virginia Beach and then Williamsburg for about 10 years, so pretty familiar with the state.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I meet a lot of people that started their, you know, as a child, they grew up, recreationally fishing, but they got really into hunting and stuff. And I know I was the same way. I'm from Southern Michigan. And so I would find myself like hunting all the time. I thought it was my passion until I really got introduced into bass fishing. Then I knew when I was sitting in the deer stand, annoyed that I wasn't bass fishing, that this was not the prime passion, right? I still love deer hunting and big game hunting and
stuff. Were you in the Army at that point?
Yeah, and I wanted to circle back to kind of what Josh said a little bit later on in the show, saying like that's what I needed, because I think it's important, and I think a lot of people need to hear the message of how outdoor therapy really helps out. But yeah, I was in the Army when I really started competitive bass fishing.
I asked because I have the same story. So, you know, I loved fishing growing up. You know, we never had a boat. My dad, when he was in the Marine Corps, so when he wasn't busy, we go bank fish. Or when I was back in Missouri, because the family's from about 80 miles from Fort Leonard Wood, and my grandma lives basically on Bull Shoals. So like I would use my uncle's pontoon boat in the summer sometimes and go out there and fish. But this is the most expensive day I've ever been on, and I've told my wife this before, and it's not her, but it's okay. But I just got tired. I wanted to go fishing, so I drove up to Bass Pro in Springfield. I was like, I want that bass tracker right there, and I paid for it, and I guess I picked it up the next day or the day after probably. But I was like, I just want to go fish.
That was it.
That was about 10 years ago at this point. So
yeah, I mean, I really think the competitive edge, like what Josh was saying, like the adrenaline. There's certain. I think all of us have that drive for that adrenaline. You know, I don't know anybody who fishes competitively that doesn't have an edge for adrenaline. They just want it. They need it. Some people need it, right? That's kind of that's my wife's biggest fear for me. I also have 2 years left before I retire, and she's like, "What are you going to do to feed the adrenaline when you get out of the Army? You're not going to jump out of airplanes anymore. You're not going to, I'm still going to shoot, but I'm not going to shoot on the taxpayer dime. You know, I'm not going to blow stuff up anymore unless it's, you know, whatever that stuff is you buy from Dick's Sporting Goods, Tannerite, you know, but I think it does. It really helps out a lot of service members, and not even service members, tons of people throughout the country. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the the Army outdoor team as a whole.
What is it?
Yeah. What is it? Can you break it down and describe it to us and everyone?
So the Army outdoor team was actually an original thought between a whole bunch of recruiters back in like 2017. It was a group of guys, soldiers who were recruiters who shared that same passion, that all of the country, they got together and kind of started this Army Outdoors Facebook page. And they were trying to link the outdoors, their passions, to recruiting to kind of help them. So it kind of spun around for a couple of years, being tossed around. And in 2020, when COVID happened, the shutdown in the battalion we're in now, Mission Support Battalion, they're looking for new ideas, new innovative ways to reach America's youth. And one of the guys on the team, on the original Facebook group, pitched it, the Army Outdoor team. He loved fishing. They bought it. They ran with it. They ended up getting our bass boat, the Army bass boat. He ran it for a year and a half. And that's when I came on board early 2020. And kind of taken it in the direction that we're at now. And Josh joined us last summer, and it's been skyrocketing since then. But I mean, our whole mission, our whole goal.
So let me step in real quick. So the company that we belong to is called The Rock, the Recruiting Outreach Company. That company belongs to the Mission Support Battalion, where that Mission Support Battalion falls under the MEB, the Marketing Engagement Brigade. Underneath our rock, we have 4 teams. You have the outdoor team, you have a rock band, you have a fitness team, and then you have the esports. Mm-hmm. So that outdoor team is just another leg or another arm onto this recruiting outreach company that already had 3 teams going out and reaching the youth that way. So that's a little bit background of like what our unit does. We market the Army through the outdoors. Is what we're doing right now.
I want to circle back to those 3 teams, but real quick, what you're saying is a good idea fairy actually had a good idea.
Just like that. Yeah.
I love it. I love it because it's few far in between, as both of you know, all of us in this room too. Good idea fairies. We usually got to go center mass on them. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting. You have an EA sports team.
Esports.
The gamers. Yep.
Okay, so can you talk about them a little bit?
He can. I know anything about computers or games.
So the permanent parties here at Fort Knox, they play a game called Rocket League, and I can't remember the other game, but it's a first-person shooter game. It's not Call of Duty, and it's really big high school and college esports games. So that's how they're reaching the high school and college age kids through that. Now they do have what they call an at-large team with, I think, like 4,000 members on it. They play every type of game you can think of, from board games, Dungeons and Dragons, to Nintendo DS games, to Call of Duty, to everything you can think of. They play. So at these the Comic-Cons, the TwitchCon, these big conventions that are geared towards the esports world, they're competing. They do a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk obviously a lot about the fishing and that part of the outdoors, but you said there's a rock band and what else?
Yeah, so there's a fitness team that we have the world's strongest man, the world's strongest woman. We have the CrossFitters that attend, CrossFit games and all that stuff.
And not just attend, like they're competing at the CrossFit games. Right now they're going through whatever the trials, the trials for it. And last year,
qualifiers,
yeah. I know last year 3 of the members actually made the CrossFit games. Captain Hughes,
the Colonel.
Yeah, I saw that actually. Yeah, I think I saw that. I think it might have came across Army Times, but
yep.
The fitness. Do they have team sports in there too? And I had a soldier. This is years ago, about 2015. He was trying to get on the Army's rugby team on the time. So I don't. Is that part of your or is that a separate?
So. It's a separate.
Yeah,
it's a separate thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the band. What's the rock band?
So the band is they're called As You Were.
Okay.
That's their name. They're pretty good. It's a touring rock band.
They opened up for like Slipknot a couple months ago. Like they're actually pretty good. Like
Red Hot Chili Peppers, they opened for last year.
That's wild.
The Army's got a rock band.
That is wild.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So for being in for 18 years, I've never knew Army had anything like this. So then whenever I got this assignment and I signed in at Fort Knox, I said, man, where's my company at? There's my company. I walk in and I see all this. I'm just like, as an EA, I'm like, what the heck? I've been missing out,
I mean, I think the only thing in the sporting industry that I knew of that the Army had was West Point, right? And they compete in NCAA football.
They have AMU.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I guess I should know. I went to AMU, but I didn't pay. Hey, online college is a heck of a thing, let me tell you. But
there are so many jobs and opportunities out there, and there's so many in those interested in the Army and the military in general. Like there's so many unique jobs out there. For instance, I know you guys are Army, but I know this is true for the Marine Corps because my dad and brother will talk about it. They literally have an MOS to run the E-clubs.
Really,
your job, and you get all the certifications, right, for your food management, all your alcohol beverages. And so, yeah, you'll probably retire as an E6 if you do 20 years, but then you get out and you're set up to go do, anything culinary, business, bar type stuff afterwards.
There's a whole nother side of the Army I never knew until you guys just within 1 minute broke it down. And that's important, right? And we'll talk about the Army Outdoor Team and the entire mission. But yeah, that's interesting. So I have a question. Being in the Army, I know this, right? You just saw that the Army published a new policy talking about if you score a certain score on your Army Combat Fitness Test, you don't have to get height and weight done anymore. You guys saw that?
I just saw that right before I left last week.
You got to score a 540 or above, and then you don't have to. You don't have to go through the Army body weight program. Anyhow, speaking of that, the world's strongest man and world's strongest woman, they got to be relatively beast mode, right? I wonder what that looks like.
Are you
for
saying they're fat bodies and they wouldn't pass the
muscle weighs more than fat?
I know.
But that's got to be an interesting situation. Like if you're trying to be the strongest man or woman, you got to be beefed up, right?
Yeah.
And he's actually because we just had our height and weight not too long ago. He's actually he was worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah,
it's shocking to see that the titles he has, the competitions he won. But he's worried about height and weight.
So
I'm 6.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm 6 foot and I'm pretty solid. PT, good, go. This guy makes me look like a midget. I'm like, I'm serious.
But that's a real thing, right? Like he has to maintain the Army's height and weight standards,
and still perform at that level, and compete against somebody that doesn't have to. So yeah, it's a good thing that they're changing that.
No, this is really interesting, and I know that this is educational for my kids too. I don't know if they're gonna want to walk the path, but we'll see.
No, there's opportunity. I mean? There's other opportunities. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I knew a little bit about the esports team because I saw some of their stuff. I don't know, scrolling through Facebook or something, but. Yeah. I didn't know about the outdoors team until you mentioned, hey, we should get Josh to come on, and then you kind of talked about it, and I was like, I had no idea such a thing even existed.
Yeah.
No, that's what Josh was talking about with networking, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know about Josh until my fishing partner, Charles, and I'll throw him in here, Charles, who fished with me on the PBC, the Piedmont Bass Classics. He was like, hey, I met a guy. He's in the Army. He's on the Army outdoor team. You should have him on the show. And I was like, what's the Army outdoor team? he's like, you're not going to believe it. And I was like, you're right. I don't believe it. Like, what's going on here? Because I love the Army. I've had a amazing experience in the Army. I had no idea about this. I was like, this is too good to be true, but it's not. It's a real thing. The Army outdoor team exists. Let's break down the fishing part of it.
Yeah. So, whenever somebody refers to as the Army outdoor team, they immediately think, oh, the Army has a fishing team. But because of this, it's a new program. That's why everybody refers it to the fishing team, because that's all we have is we have a bass boat. But it's much larger than that. But so like Daniel was saying, right now we're only 2 people strong right now. Our TDA is only allowing us 2 hard slots right now. So, and like, talking to Trey, I'm very passionate about, competitive bass fishing. Can I go out there and showcase deer hunting and turkey hunting and waterfowl and all that? Yes. But like, at the same time, I'm at a position in my career that I'm trying to set myself up now to, get out and pursue my dream. And that is competitive bass fishing. So like, that's where my focus is. And I know, I've known being in the military that when you put too much on your plate, like, nothing happens. So that I know that I can really get this program going in the right direction if I just focus on bass fishing. So whenever you think of outdoors, I hope I don't make any of your viewers mad, but competitive bass fishing and whitetail deer hunting are the 2 biggest things out there.
Yeah,
it is. Now you're going to have your duck hunters and your waterfowl, all your goose hunters and all that. They're going to stay different, but dude, look it up. It's whitetail deer hunting and bass fishing. So that's our focus right now, is get a hold of this program in this bass fishing industry, competitive bass fishing. And then hopefully our TDA grows a little bit like the CrossFit, our fitness team, like they have a legit roster. So going back to your question is like, now, how do we get out into that fishing? How do we get that exposure? And that's what we're doing right now. So Daniel, he's fishing in the BFLs. And then I got that opportunity, like like you guys are tracking that. I'm fishing them the National Professional Fishing League this year. It's huge. I don't know. I kind of get choked up right now because, like, I remember, being my give me a second.
You're good, man.
On one of my first deployments, I lost some people, in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff. And a lot of my buddies were getting out after that first term. And I was like, they're like, Josh, what are you going to do? And I was liking bass fishing. I was in it. I didn't know, but I was like, I really want to fish professionally as a bass fisher, angler. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like, I would love to. I'm not kidding you. This is like 13 years ago. I said, I'm going to find a way to fish for the Army professionally. That's 13 years ago, right? Sergeant E5 Watkins, not a clue how the Army worked. And here I am, 2023, fishing professionally for the Army, representing, the biggest team in this country, the United States Army.
Sure.
That's where we're at. And, sorry if I got a little choked up, but that's where it all started at, and that's the plan. So
yeah, I mean,
that's awesome.
First of all, you don't have to apologize for getting choked up. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. Is like there are certain things that certain individuals need. Right, bass fishing is a need for me, and I know these 2 gentlemen sitting at the table. It's a need for them as well, and it's just something that it's almost hard to explain to people that it's not that they can't understand it. It's just really hard to explain, like, what does that do to you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever the case may be. But it's amazing to see that the Army has developed a platform. You guys are actually developing the platform through the Army to do something like this. And, we're definitely going to continue kind of going down that road. It'll be really interesting to see. So we talked about the Army Outdoor Team and all the sections that it has, and and kind of how you guys are starting the fishing side of it. Ben had an interesting question. What was your question real quick?
Yeah, so the Army has a bass boat. The Army, the taxpayers, we paid for a bass boat. So you all get to go fish at it, which is outstanding. But was that the best 2062 that you ever signed, that piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hands down. I'm
Humvees, who cares? All the weapon systems, millions of dollars, who cares? Bass boat. I'll sign that all day.
So there's 3 things, actually. The best 3 things I've signed for was the bass boat, the F-350 Super Duty, and the gas card.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. And all joking aside, like, the Army does a very good job at making sure we're a steward of the taxpayer dollar. Yeah. Like, and property is something that you don't joke around with, because these are all of our taxpayer dollars going towards making sure our military is successful. And but I would love to sign for a nitro. What is it? Z21?
It's a Z20.
Z20. Z20 with a 250 Merc on the back with some talons.
Talons, the Mid Code Ultrex, 52 inch.
Yeah.
Forward facing sonar.
Yeah, that's nice. We're gonna have to go ahead and write that off as a combat loss.
Just real quick. I do have to make comment. Randy Blockett, you do own a forward-facing sonar.
He snuck it in there. There you go. Yeah.
Actually, I saw a TikTok today. I got to bring this up real quick. You know the TikTok where there's the guy on the boat and it's floating and it plays the sad music?
Yeah.
They put Randy Blockett in the front of the boat and it said, me on my way to another tournament with no live scope to finish dead last.
That's a discussion for we'll jump into that. We'll jump into that. What is the mission of the Army Outdoor Team?
So our official mission of the Army Outdoor Team is to market, or how they word it. Sorry, my apologies.
The mission is to market the Army of Service of Choice through the outdoors. Whether it is, like I said, it's bigger than the fishing, and it's hard because we're just two people right now. You're talking 350 million people out there,
right.
But it's through the outdoors. So we attend expos, we attend high school visits, competitions and all that stuff.
And like I said earlier, the esports, the Warrior Fitness team, they have what they call their at-large team. Mm-hmm. That's what we have also. We have a very small, we're slowly building up, but we have guys who are hunters, who are competition longbow, traditional bow.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we pull them in at certain events that we can to where they fit in, plug and play to where they fit into that area.
Okay.
So I know we thanked everybody for visiting at the Classic. This is recorded before, so I'm going to ask a question. I know the Army, is it the outdoor team that has the booth at the Classic? You guys obviously are sponsoring some of the events there. And
so there's a confusion out there, and I'll go ahead and put it out there, is that you have Army buck hunters, you have Army bass anglers, you got the Army duck hunters. So what we're fighting right now is they think that we're the same organization. So like whenever we go to these outdoor expos, I did one down in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and they had Army Bass and Army Outdoor Team right next to each other. So everybody thought we were 1-on-1, and I'm like, nah, I can't do that. That's a headache. That's a whole different organization. But yeah. But that is a Classic.
Yeah, that must be a challenge for you guys because there is a lot of obviously veterans and military community within the competitive bass fishing world. So, that's why that true identity of what you're out there doing, that concrete mission statement is going to be so important because young kids, we see it all the time with recruiters. They go to high schools and they go to events at colleges and stuff like that. But a lot of the population just doesn't have a good understanding of the military in general, right? No. It's not their fault. It's just they just never had to be educated on it. So it's part of your guys' mission statement to go educate the population on what options they have, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And you're using platforms such as the Major League Fishing Bass Fishing League, the BFLs, and you're using platforms such as the National Professional Fishing League to push that narrative, correct?
So yeah, I was at a couple shows, a few months back, and a lot of the kids, not kids, but the younger guys, like 17, 18 years, their first thing would be like, well, you guys have no life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, dude, I own a house in North Carolina. I own a house in Missouri. I have a wife and a daughter. And by the way, I'm passionate about fishing. Like, wait till you see what I have working for me here in a couple months. But our goal is to say, like, there's life out of the uniform. Like, we don't just put the uniform on 24/7, even though NCOs say, we're leaders 24/7. Of course, that's our job, right? To answer that phone call at the middle of the night. But when it comes down to it, like, I'm eating dinner at home. If I'm not deployed, which nobody's been deployed for a while now, like, you're eating dinner, you have a job. I don't want to say it's a 9-to-5 job because depending on what job you have, MOS, like, you have a life out of the uniform. You're not constantly in that uniform. And that's what a lot of kids are scared of, is like, they think that all we do is do push-ups and get yelled at, put a uniform on. And
Yeah.
that's not it.
I don't know if it was the same when you guys were in school, but that was kind of the stigma. Like when you're high school, especially when you're a male in high school, like your buddies were going to sign up, and it was always like, well, if you sign up, they're going to tell you when you can put your underwear on, which foot to tie first, what cereal to eat in the morning. You're going to have to get up and do push-ups. You're not going to be able to go out on the weekend, and it's definitely not the case. I mean, I have enough friends that served, and now you do have a life. So I think
one of the things I tell people I miss the most, obviously working with the people and the mission, and the fact that taxpayers paid for me to do a lot of cool stuff. In my years in the Army. But one of the things I missed the most is
Rippets.
that. Well, I do like rippets. I actually do like rippets, especially the little can rippets. They taste better. Is that unless you're deployed or you're going through a training exercise or something, you get a 3 or 4 day weekend every month. You get 30 days off a year.
Yeah.
No other job out there, unless you run your own business and you're successful enough where you can do that. But if you go work in the corporate world, you're not getting time off like that to go fish or whatever you want to do, your hobby. Like you're not getting it.
I think I added it up maybe a year or two ago, but like when you talk about like all the federal holidays, the training holidays, that say you want 3 or 4 day passes out of the year, and then all your 30 days of leave, it's like 55, 60 days off a year, like free.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, I was talking to my mom the other day about this because she always gives me crap, right? I'll call her on the way home and she's like, do you not work for a living? I'm like, listen, the Army's job is to maintain a state of readiness for at any point in time when the glass needs to break, we're going to war, right? That's the way it works. So if I maintain readiness 4 hours a day or 8 hours a day, that's none of your concern, but that is the reality. Right. And, and you're right, Josh, like when I first joined, I think it was like 5 or 6 years into service, people back where I came from literally thought that we were getting yelled at on a daily basis, screamed at, told what to eat. And I'm like, dude, I own my own house. Like I go home at the end of the night. If I'm not deployed, then I'm literally with my family. And so that's important though. It's an important message because you can choose two things with the military, and those listening, you can choose a job or you can choose a career, and the choice is yours, right? And I chose to make a career out of it because it was what best set me up for success, right? And whatever the next chapter in my life is going to be, hopefully fishing, NPFL or bass or something like that. I don't know. But
and along those lines, obviously I didn't make it a career, but it sets you up. I mean, you get so many great experiences. You learn so much. It teaches you to be resilient and and adaptable. I know those are the buzzwords, but it's absolutely true. You have to be able to. And so whatever you go afterwards, and obviously I'm, started the lure business, but whatever it is, right? Those facets that are instilled from you for either 3, 4, 5, 20 years, however long you serve, right? Those are applicable anywhere else you go afterwards.
And as the only one on this podcast that didn't serve, I'll tell you, if I knew then what I know now about life, and it would have been a no-brainer to choose a career path where, you're taught valuable lessons and morals and everything that you're taught the military teaches you and sets you up, albeit maybe a little slower than some other professions or whatever it is, but that wasn't the path I walked. But I will never try to talk somebody out of it that asked me. I know my nephews asked, and I'm like, everybody I know that served is probably the best thing you can do.
I'm smirking right now because I don't believe Pete. Like when I first met Pete through Ben, right? And we all kind of met each other individually, and then we came together collectively. Pete knew more about the Army than I felt like I did. And I was like, this dude served. But seriously, he has surrounded himself by so many individuals. And you guys know how it is when you're around a base or you come from a military family, like you speak a different language. Yes. You speak a language that a lot of tracking, like nobody says that, right? Like, knife hand, squared away. Like, where'd this guy come from? So whatever spy world he lived in before the OneCast, I don't know. But
you can't talk about that.
He has an NDA and all that. No, I'm just kidding. But that's interesting. And Ben, that kind of, I'll circle back to the two platforms you guys are specifically fishing. But one of the questions I had, and this is for both of you, and you may have both an individual opinion on it, both on tour or leading up to starting the Army fishing side of the Army outdoor team, what in particular in your military experience through like Army values and deployments and stuff like that, is there something that sticks out to you that has really helped you use that to be successful in fishing?
Oh, absolutely. So I'll name two right off the bat. The personal courage is one of the 7 Army values. Like competing in my first professional, level tournament with the NPFL last week on picnic. I put 2 months of my iPad right now is just loaded with homework. And so it took like a lot of personal courage to whether I thought I was ready to compete at this level or not. But it was my dream, and I'm a person of opportunity. Like there's only going to be so many doors that open up, and I'm gonna when one opens, I'm gonna kick it in, and I'm going in like head first, right? And so and Daniel will tell you, I had a lot of issues leading up to this event. Right whenever we got on ground, like my first day of practice, my trolling motor took a crap. I got brand new boat. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? So that wasted my whole first day of practice, and came out to, once we got the boat onto the trailer, took my bow apart, took all my graphs off, found out that, the positive cable of my trolling motor came off of the junction box. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like it's easy fix, right? But it's just that stress level that the Army's, everything I've done in the Army's allowed me to kind of like close my eyes, take a deep breath, and get back into the game, allowed me to keep on going. I came into another mechanical issue where my jumper cable that connected my 36 volt, my batteries into a 36 came disconnected. So I don't know like what happened to my wiring system, but some wires came disconnected. But at that time, like I'm looking at Daniel, my wife had drove down to Pickwick. I'm looking at them like I'm not a tap. I don't tap. Like I'm going to pass out, but like I felt like I was going to be like, I can't do this right now. Like I am not mentally ready. And then Daniel, being my partner and my wife being there, they're like, dude, we've watched you fish. Like you know what you're doing. Go out there and do it. So then the third day of practice, I shut everything off. And I'm going down the lake. And I stumbled across something. I was like, holy cow. Like I was marking all kinds of fish and stuff, and did pretty good on practice day. But what I'm getting at is the personal courage, that the Army's taught me kept me in that fight. And then, integrity is another one of our, Army values that there is so much. Like just look at the, what was it? The walleye.
Here we go.
No.
You're good.
I'm not talking about it. I don't want to bring it, but there's so much cheating out there, whether it's, like NPFL. We have a 20-day off limit period, lead up to the day one of practice, of official practice. And then from January 20, I think it was January 16th. I don't know, it's passed, but we can't have any more information on the rest of the 6 stops. I know Josh Watkins isn't going to, ask for information. I'm not going to go and say, hey, Trey, we're coming down to Jordan Lake. Where they at, man? But it's sad. There are some out there.
Mm-hmm.
So Army has taught me to, live by integrity. Like I won't do it.
I can relate. I think everybody here can. Like even fishing a small tournament, or I think it boils down to if you're in a position where you could fail, it creates a mentality where you're like, I'm either going to have the personal courage to step up and do this, or I'm going to fold, right? And the Army and a lot of things in life, it's ingrained in you like this is a no-fail task, right? A no-fail task is hard. That's expectation management, by the way, because we fail all the time. But there is something to be said at getting up at the national level, representing the United States Army and all of the American people. Oh, what's going on? We good? All the American people. And And that does take a lot of personal courage. And you're right, the integrity piece, and that's something that is always going to be important in the outdoor industry, specifically fishing. And I know that Pete and Ben and I, we've talked about it at lengths. And yeah, we don't want to give those guys any more credit, those walleye guys, but that made a mark on the fishing industry, the entire fishing industry, right? So having personal courage and integrity and upholding those Army values, absolutely agree with you. Daniel, what are your thoughts on that?
So integrity is one of the big things for me. It's from day one I joined the Army. I also knew about it before, but it's even on my jersey, my sleeve, duty, honor, and integrity. Fishing the BFLs, fishing these other tournaments, there are people that ride that gray area, but holding that integrity, doing the right thing when no one's looking, especially when you get up to that professional league, the NPFL, the Bass Pro Tours, the elite, stuff like that, where you're the only one on the boat.
Yeah.
And that it leaves that gray area, but holding that. And that's something that, like Josh said, the Army's instilled that in us.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And holding that. But one of the things I want to say that the Army's prepared me for all this is I've been in 15 years. And I've been in 9 different locations. And anyone who served more than one contract, one term, you move around. So as you move around, you get the opportunity to fish different areas, not just traveling for a tournament, but I lived up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. It is freezing cold up there on Lake Superior, but I've never been salmon fishing.
No?
Never been salmon fishing before then, but learning about salmon fishing, the spawning, the runs, the steelhead, the lake trout, walleye. I love walleye fishing. But I mean, have the experience to travel around and fish different areas, different regions, that definitely sets us up.
Absolutely. I hate walleye fishing, but I love eating them, Joe.
Yeah, I like eating them too. I've spent some time in the UP, and one of my favorite pastimes is to go up to the Manistee River, which I don't think that's not in the UP, but the Manistee River, or across the lake over into like Manitowoc and Wisconsin, and run those kings in September, October when they're going up to spawn. It's one of the best times in the world.
I think that I just wanted to comment on the personal courage and the mental resiliency. That's probably, as somebody that doesn't have that trained into them and didn't go through the steps to get that ingrained, probably the biggest struggle myself as an angler and other anglers I know at all levels, because I have buddies that have fished at all levels all the way up to elites. And that's always the hardest lesson to learn, is to be able to step back, reset, whatever it is, and then to come back. And I think it's G-Man that says positive mental attitude. Everybody says it now, but to be able to reset. And I think there's an advantage there for you guys, because it is trained into you in a way, and it's ingrained in who you are as an adult and as a person. So right there, I truly feel like there's an advantage.
It reminds me of a story of a buddy of mine. He was in the 82nd back in the surge. I think he did 4 or 6 years, and he got out and went to college, and he went to interview at like investment banks in New York, and he worked in New York for a while. And one of the interview questions, like, do you think you can handle the stress of this job, etc.? He said he looked at him deadpan and said, my level of stress is thinking about, if my Humvee blows up right now, can I get a tourniquet on and help before I bleed out and help the other guys out? And he's like, he had no other questions in the interview after that. He's like, it's a different level.
That's true. It's just truth. Like, if I didn't relate back to all my training and all my education that the last 18 years, 4 days, 5 days ago, 6 days ago, I would have spun out. Even though I didn't have a good performance, but I wouldn't even have made it onto the water. Like, I'd have been like, nah, I'm done. Like, this is big. And NPFL's new. It's been around for about 3 years. But I'm telling you, there's some hammers in there. Yeah. You got John Kosh, you got Patrick Walters, you got Keith Carson, just to name a few. But you have some guys like, just last year, I'm looking up to them and like, oh, this is cool, watching them. And now here I am, boat to boat, fishing the same bank. And it can be very intimidating.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the history of that league too. I mean, you have 2 guys that come out of there last year and they're fishing the elites this year, and elite guys fishing it. And Mike Corbishley, who's a friend of our shows, fished it the last couple of years. Mike's a great guy, and it's and we've talked about it a lot. The league, the NPFL, we're really fans. Talked to one of the owners actually at Red Crest, and he thanked us for all we do, and I'm like, man, thank you for giving anglers and fans of high level competition something different to watch. So I think it's really cool and it's really exciting. I want to get into how you ended up there, but let's.
Let me talk before we take a quick break. I know we don't have to say that, but we're going to say it. Humbleness goes a long way. You got two gentlemen, Josh and Daniel, serving the country. I'm in. Pete, you have a very important job making sure people are safe every day, right? Ben, you served, and now you're serving the outdoor industry with small business, which is extremely important in our country. And I think a lot of people forget that. Like, we all serve this nation in some way, shape, or form, for the most part. And I look up to anglers all the time. And I'm sure anglers look up to service members and police officers and doctors and lawyers. I don't know about lawyers, but still, everybody. And I guess it boils down to being humble and bringing humility to whatever you do. And I think for me, that's something the Army has taught me. After 9 deployments in a row, I just got back last year from my 9th one. We can be ignorant sometimes. Right, as Americans, because our life is amazing, but what has taught the biggest thing is humility and being humble. You only get you can get a slice of humble pie any day of the week, anytime you want it. It's whether or not you choose to eat it. So that is something important for me going into this, because I beat myself up more than anybody. Except for my wife. She likes to beat me up when I come home and get a 19th place finish or she's like, well, 12th isn't first. And I'm like, okay, but I know what she's getting at. So, it's definitely something cool that you said, like, you looked up to Keith Carson and John Cox. There's 2 of them, by the way, everyone. And all those other professional anglers, but they probably look up to you too. You're just not, now you're televised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I wanted to build on what Trey was just talking about with humbleness, and it's not something that everybody's taught. And you see it sometimes with local level anglers that have a lot of success, with folks that go into like the investing world and they make a bunch of money. I've been very blessed in my life, but I didn't serve in the military, but I spent the day after I graduated high school, I started my first full-time job on an ambulance for a year. And then I was a paramedic for 12 years after that. And so I sort of I get what you're saying, Trey. So for anybody that's listening that maybe has never had that humble pie and experienced loss or those more serious things in life, maybe take a look in the mirror.
Right.
That's all I want to say. Because we see it all the time, right? And we talk about anglers on the water, and we went over etiquette a couple episodes ago, and people get this facade or this mentality, and they've never had that piece of humble pie. So.
Yeah, getting that humility, getting checked is important. And I tell you what, fishing may be the sport that gives you the most humble pie.
Does it humble you in a hurry?
Speaking of humble pie, so you guys talked about the MPFL, and I want to dive into both of them, but let's talk the MPFL real quick. How and why the MPFL for the Army Outdoor team and the fishing team?
So going back to like our previous questions that you guys had asked us, and like, what all do we do and how do we outreach, the people out there? The NPFL is a professional level circuit, new, but they're gaining momentum. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that they had the credibility that the Army Outdoor team needed, for one, to get exposure and all that stuff. 2, if you look at the Bass Opens, they just revamped their whole elites qualifier, EQs, mm-hmm. right? So like now, not only can you fish like back then it was like the South Division.
Mm-hmm.
You have to compete in all 9 now to even have a chance. And it's like compete, boom, 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 boom. And then I can't go to Big Army and say, hey, here I am. I'm gone for the next 7 months. I'm not going to work for you. I'm just going to go fish, right? That's not how the Army works. Like, they're like, no, you're going to do something else. Mm-hmm. So the bass wasn't there for us. Major League Fishing, we attempted to do some Toyota series and stuff like that. Last minute stuff fell through, and we weren't able to do that. We were both going to jump in the Toyota series. We were going to fish the Plains Division, the Southwest, is either the Southwest or the Centrals down in Gunnersville, Smith Lake, and all that stuff. But we were only going to pick 2. And the reason why I say pick 2 and not all 6 of them on the Toyota Series is because the Army still wants us to go out to the outdoor expos, the Bass Classics, the big state expos and all that stuff. So then when we refer back to why the NPFL, if you look at the NPFL schedule, it's 6 events. It started in last week and it goes all the way out to, I think our last one is in Lake Lanier, Georgia in October. So it's like every 6 weeks. So not only am I trying to say, okay, what's best for the Army, but what's best for my wife and my daughter and all that stuff too, because they if you don't have a support system, so I tell everybody, there's 2 things to be successful. It's stability and a support system. My wife, my family, my dad, my mom, all my family, they support me, whatever I want to do. I'm telling you, they're right behind me. And then the Army supports me. And then the Army gives me the stability to allow me to go out and chase my dream. So those are my 2 things. But again, it goes back to the schedule of what the NPFL does. It's for the working class angler out there trying to bring up something, whether it's to promote their organization or promote themselves to gain that professional level. That's why I choose the NPFL.
Yeah. So before we jump into the BFL, this goes back to what we talked about when we did our preseason recaps. We talked about the NPFL. We talked about the elites. We talked about MLF, the changes. We all said it. Like, if there was one you were going to pick to fish today, and your goal wasn't to get the elites, but was to fish professionally, to get the most exposure, to get your name out there, I think all 3 of us said the NPFL. If it wasn't the elites, wasn't your goal, or BPT wasn't your goal, if it was just to fish. And they do. Trey talked about it explicitly. Ben did. They film all of their stuff. Their live coverage is amazing. Luke and Fat Cat do a great job of making sure folks get coverage. The weigh-ins, live stream. They live stream 2 days. Now they're up to what? I think 10 cameras total with the.
I think it's
with the non-manned, right? All of that's available. Then they put the entire thing on YouTube after the event, so you can go on and watch all that. They do a great job on their social. Go ahead.
Fixed TV now. It's on fixed TV, so I wasn't allowed to get any information and all that. I came back yesterday. I was beat. Took a little nap. I woke up and watched it on fixed TV. I said, "This is awesome. This is cool."
Yeah, so it's exposure. It makes sense for the Army, for the exposure for the Army. Personally, with your goals, what you want to do after the military, professional, there's no better way to get out there in front of sponsors, in my opinion, than you have somebody push you. And the NPFL does a great job of highlighting anglers on their socials, of their live coverages. I tell them all the time when I see Fat Cat and Luke, and I know Paul. I know you know Paul Benson. I know Paul. I see him at shows and stuff. I compliment every time I see him. Like y'all's live coverage is great.
Yeah,
like you're right up there, whether you want to admit it or not, with the bigger tours. So that just for anybody watching, I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I caught myself. No, so think about it and think about back. It just kind of cements what we've already talked about with the league. And if there's anybody out there that is looking for that opportunity, I'm sure they're going to open up next year applications. And don't be afraid to chase a dream. It doesn't have to just be BASS or the MLF.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, with the NPFL, was there certain criteria or anything that you had to meet for the Army side of it and for the NPFL side of it?
So the NPFL was just like I never applied for the elites or BPT or any of that because you got to qualify for all that stuff. So, but NPFL did have a list.
Yeah.
That, you go in there, an application form, you put in all your past history, how long you've been competing, and all that stuff, and send it in. And what happened.
Yeah. The NPFL, the way that they spread it out, you already talked about it. It really does enable that organization to target a different group of anglers, right? The people that every one of us, for the most part, has to work, but that really does set up well for those trying to fish a national level circuit that are qualified to do it, right?
It's like we said, most folks can get 6 weeks off.
Yeah.
They can't necessarily get 9 plus to fish the other events. So
yeah. So with
BFLs.
So Daniel, with the Major League Fish and Bass, BFL Bass Fishing League. Yeah, the BFLs, Phoenix Bass Fishing League, I think is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
So how did that transpire for the Army Outdoors team?
So like Josh said, our original goal was to go to the Toyota Series. We're both going to fish that. Last minute stuff, when that fell through, he was thankful that the NPFL, like he got accepted for that. That went through. And then looking at that schedule, looking at the rest of our schedule for the year that they had planned out for us already, we sat down and we talked, and that was the best fit for me. I'll say it honestly, I'm not at the NPFL level. Like, I'm not at that pro level yet. My goal is to apply next year, and both of us fish the NPFL. So this year, the scheduling, and I chose the Illini division. So Shelbyville Lake, Wren Lake, Paducah, and Kentucky Lake. So that's kind of how it came about. We're just mainly the scheduling stuff, and then me getting the experience to be up there.
So I'll just throw this out there right now. When you say like at that level, I'm here to tell you, like, I blasted off. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. And there was 200 boats in the BFL. So there's not a lot of people that can afford to fish at the national level, but there are some amazing anglers.
So you have your local. The thing I learned about Lake of the Ozarks, man, I don't know how many times I put how many hours on my boat trying to get Lake of the Ozarks dialed in. And you think you're on a pattern, you think you're on a solid, 16, 18, 19-pound bag, and then you have the Hibden boys, or you have one of the, Casey Scanlon. They're local hammers.
Yep.
Even though they're touring pros, right? But they're the locals of that lake. BFLs are harder than any other circuit out there. I'm telling you that.
I agree completely.
We've talked about this a lot. It's the same thing here, right? You have your local hammers that clean up. They're first through fifth on all the local events, and we've talked about it a lot. But if you take a lot of those guys to a lake in Florida, or let's say Pickwick is a great example, right? Anywhere that they're not going to do nearly as good because they haven't developed the skills to read the water that I think a lot of these other anglers at the highest level have developed over the years, and that they can be adapted, they can be flexible, and hopefully that, going back to what we talked about earlier, with the Army, if you've been fishing throughout your entire Army career and fishing different locations and different bodies of water, it gives you that breadth of experience already that at least you got something to rely on when you show up to a place. Because had you been to Pickwick before?
I've never been to Pickwick.
See, so so with Pickwick, then if we want to transition into it, so you're fishing the NPFL. Their first event was at Pickwick. We know you didn't have the performance you wanted to, but this is your first time fishing that level. What did you learn from it? Like, what was your biggest takeaway from the event? I know we talked about the resiliency right, because of the issues, but like the biggest event from the tournament structure and competing against those guys, at that level.
I'm going to keep it simple, and so people are going to disagree or whatever and call BS, but listen to if you fish a lot of days, like, I'm not talking like once a month, but if you go out there and you dedicate your time on the water and you go to compete, fish the moment and listen to your gut. And I found myself on that lake forcing something that my gut was telling me something else. And I was like, no, I've caught them this way. I'm going to keep doing it. They're coming. And I should have just listened to my gut and went from, offshore shallow, points back to cranking, regular riprap, in parallel in the bank, with a little 1.5, 2.5. My gut the entire tournament. And what sucks is like, you can't get no information. You can't look at nothing. And I'm sitting there like, but even if you look at the tournament, like, they weren't out there whacking them. Like, everybody was struggling.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in Cypress Creek. I love to flip, pitch, skip. I love it. Like, give me a lay down and I'm going to pick it apart. And so Cypress Creek was only about half a mile from McFarland Park where we launched. We were getting bad weather in. A big front was coming in, supposed to have like 25-mile-an-hour winds. And I said, you know what? I didn't even go into Cypress Creek on practice. I kind of hit the point, but I never went down deep. And I said, on Google Earth, I saw nothing but laydowns, and I saw like 16 foot of water on some place. I said, it's deep enough. I said, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to pitch a jig around. And I go in there and I'm like, this ain't it. Because I go back saying, okay, who am I competing against, right? John Cox, the Keith Carsons. These guys are shallow water guys. Like, if I'm not seeing these guys in here, or those type of anglers in here, like, get out. And I did. I wasted a lot of time in Cypress Creek whenever I should have went to my gut, parallel to bank, and with a 1.5, 2.5, or whatever crankbait, and fished that way. Mm-hmm. But my fish offshore they were gone. They were pulling a lot of current. A lot.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of anglers do that? I know this was just your first event with the NPFL, but you've been fishing for a long time. You fished derbies in North Carolina and all over the place. You were trying to get on Rick Clun level in Lake of the Ozarks. That's pretty hard to do for anyone, right? But do you think a lot of anglers pay a lot of attention to other anglers and what they're doing?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what they're not doing?
Yes, I got a bunch of buddies in the BPT, a couple buddies in BPT, and then the invitationals. And they tell you that's one of the things. They learn your competitors. Learn your competitors, because you can kind of watch and see what they're doing, and you can kind of scramble something together if you're struggling.
Do you think that hurts anglers sometimes doing that though?
Absolutely,
because you don't fish your strength and you don't listen to your gut.
Yep, I know I've done it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll go do something, what I'm comfortable with, and I'm nobody else is doing it, and you go, well, this ain't right. So then you find yourself running around trying to do something else, and now you look back and you go, if I would have just stuck with doing what I do, what my gut said to do, I know I could have ground 5 fish out. I might not have won, but I could have caught 5 fish.
Yeah.
Instead, I've run all over the lake chasing a pattern that I'm not comfortable with and trying to match what these other guys are doing. And we say it all the time. It's hard to catch another man's fish.
Yeah. I can't stand when this happens. And I'm on that 3 fish curse right now. All right. I hate that. Like, I know I can catch 5 fish. I know it. It's stupid. Why can't you catch 5 fish? You do it in practice. But the one thing that I always rewind, I wish I had game footage, and I should use the GoPro my wife got me. Hopefully she doesn't listen to this anyway, so it doesn't matter. But brand new GoPro. I wish I could watch the game footage, because one of the things that I always hear, and my partner's guilty of this too, I caught fish here before. Well, yeah, that's great, but yesterday's not today, and definitely 20 days ago is not today, or whatever the case may be. So it is interesting how we do that to ourselves, and we're on the water and we know that we should listen to our gut, and we don't. And then we always beat ourselves up about it when it's done. It's like, I should have listened to my gut.
And that event on Pickwick, you guys faced the gambit of changing conditions and pulling water. And then the last day they weren't pulling it as hard as they had been the first 2 days. And
so they dropped it the last day. So right before practice, they were pulling like 155 CFS. They got it down to like 130. When we hit practice, the first day of practice, I think it was like a 130. By the time we hit the tournament, it was like still 110, maybe a low 100. And then that last day, they dropped it all the way down to 70. They shut the gates off at Wilson. Like, there was nothing coming from the Wilson side, but they were still pulling about 70 from Pickwick. But the wind changed, the temperature changed, the water level changed. I think they dropped it. So it's like 414 is like the normal pool. And I think one day of the tournament, I think it was an upper 408. Mm-hmm. So
the NPFL's weigh-in really interesting, and we're going to jump to Daniel's last BFL event if you fished one. The drive-through weigh-in is an awesome opportunity for the Army to get its message across to the people. Do you have to be in uniform when you go up on stage, or how does that work for the Army?
No, so like we have our jersey with the outdoor logo, the Army logo. I'm allowed to. I don't have to be in uniform, just my fishing jersey.
Okay. And are you seeing good return from the crowd? Being up there on behalf of the Army?
Oh, they whenever they announce, hey, next boat, 8, Master Sergeant, actually they said Josh Watkins, U.S. Army Pro, current serving active duty soldier. They're like, whoa, hang on a second. What is this? Yeah, so
I'm paying for this. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, we talked about that before too. Like every circuit does it differently, but we really enjoy how the NPFL like promotes everything all at once, right? Not only the person, but the boat wrapped, the vehicle wrapped, all the sponsors and stuff like that. It really kind of gives a holistic approach to who they're seeing on stage. Before we move on to BFL, gentlemen, you got any questions about Pickwick? Okay, Pickwick, and we'll talk next. Daniel, what was your last, or have you fished any derbies this year?
This year I have not. Last year, my last one was July last year. Wren Lake was a BFL in Illinois.
Lake. Okay.
It was hot. Josh actually fished it also. We were both boaters. And it was high 90s every day. It was hot. I caught one striper during practice, and then come tournament day, my he's like, "Hey, everything you know about summer fishing thrown out the window." I caught 3 fish, 1 scoreable, but all 3 fish I caught were in 2 feet of water, and blue skies, sunny, and 3 feet of water. I caught all 3 of my fish.
We got a little bit of a benefit there because you got co's in the BFL, right? So a lot of them are local to the area, and that is not violating an information rule because you guys are fishing together. So that I can see the benefit of that. And trust me, I got a lot of crap for talking about co-anglers in my remark, saying that I wouldn't prefer to have them if I was fishing all 9 of the Bassmaster Elite qualifiers, just because I wouldn't want somebody in the back of my boat potentially catching some fish if I'm trying to make it to the elites. However, there's definitely a benefit to having them. So do you have any BFLs coming up this year?
Yeah, so my first one is May 13th at Shelbyville Lake in Illinois.
Okay. How does that lake set up?
It's a good question.
Guess you'll find out.
So it's May time. We'll see how it is, see the water temperature and everything. I've never been. I fished one lake in Illinois, and it's the one time I've ever stayed in Illinois besides Chicago. So it's pretty even where we are now. So I mean, it should be pretty good.
How far is it from Knox?
4 hours.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
So for you,
He'll go down with pre-finish.
I was just going to say, since there's no official practice days in the BFL, does the Army provide you an opportunity to prepare for that tournament?
So we'll actually go down probably about a week before the tournament. We'll do what we call shaping operations. We'll contact the local recruiting company and the stations. We'll do some high school visits and some other stuff with the local recruiting guys.
Okay.
And then I'll get 3 days of practice on that lake.
Oh, awesome.
So for people fishing, I think a lot of people that look at competitive fishing, they don't realize that there's 17-year-old kids or 17-year-old young adults fishing, 16-year-olds and stuff like that. That's a great opportunity for the Army, right? And I think you guys are doing a great job with kind of like, for a lack of a better term, targeting that demographic because there's so many young people in the industry. So through the BFLs, which get a huge turnout throughout the continental United States, and through the MPFL, which has amazing television and, they're on all the different social media networks, like that's something. And I think we talked about that during the Fishing Friday, wasn't it? Like there's a young man, 17 years old fishing.
Yeah, Hayden.
Yeah.
Hayden Hammond's fishing.
Yeah, head from
MPFL.
North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's fishing what? MPFL?
MPFL, yeah.
So you're
He got
right.
like 6.
He got what?
16th. I think.
16th. That's right.
16th.
Yeah, 16th. So you got him fishing alongside of you. I mean, and that, I mean, I don't know if he's ever going to join the Army, but now he can see what the Army also has to offer. So that's really interesting.
Here's a good idea, Ferry, for the Army. How about each installation, expand the outdoor team, additional duty, get like 3 boats, and their job is just to be captains for the high schools.
Yeah.
There you go.
And they can get out into all the high school teams and network. And
There's another good idea, Ferry, that I don't want to go center mass on. Like, I like that idea. Like that's amazing. And that is true, right? We got, like you talked about before, like back in our day, we always keep saying that because we're all old or older, but there was no high school bass fishing leagues. There was no collegiate level bass fishing. And now you're seeing all this stuff come to fruition. And now you got the Army Outdoor team with fishing. What's next for the MPFL, Josh?
So Wright Patman is down in Texarkana. So that's the next one. That's top 2. Knock on some wood. I'm looking forward to that one. Right now, I'm starting my homework on it, and it's like 60 degrees water temp right now. It's bushes. It's a spinnerbait, jig, Texas rig. Maybe a frog, topwater bite. Should be pretty good. But I'm looking forward to that one. That's Texarkana is in April. And then we shoot over to Santee Cooper in May.
Yeah, we're going to try to swing down at least maybe one of the days.
Awesome.
Maybe the final day swing down, because it's, 3 or 4 hours from us would be.
Yeah, it's not too far from you guys.
Yeah, I've never fished it before either.
Neither have I.
And I want to get
So
out.
that's the thing. And that's the thing, too, is like, I fished down in Florida. I fished Carolina. I'd never fished Santee Cooper. I fished Missouri, out the table. I fished a pretty good region of bodies of water. But going into this MPFL schedule, so stop one was Pickwick. We got Wright Patman in Texarkana, Santee Cooper in South Carolina, Saginaw Bay up in Bay City, Michigan. And then we got Lake Eufaula, Oklahoma, and then Lake Lanier in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at that schedule, I'm like, I have no history on. Got it. Trust me, history is gonna would help.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I'm going off of what I know how to fish. I know how to catch fish. I know how to find fish, and playing your electronics. It all comes together. Like I'm going out there with a clean slate. I'm not fishing history.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to this schedule. Like if you'd have to ask me which one I was looking forward to, I'd have said Pickwick. But
maybe you learned a lot more than you knew, though.
What's that?
I said maybe you learned a lot more than you thought you were going to learn.
I would love. I even was talking to Brennan Perkins too, the guy who won.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So congratulations to Brennan Perkins if you guys aren't tracking. But yeah, he went out there and won. But I'm trying to get down there in June to do some ledge fishing with them out there. May or June. So
Yeah,
well, make sure you bring an extra life preserver because I'll be with you.
just so
come on.
Just to speak on that, like when you get to the level NPFL, BPT, elites, those guys all help each other. You see Carl Jochimson fish with all those guys. You see them fishing together in the off season, teaching folks strengths that they have that others might not have. We talk about it all the time. Those guys are serious about growing the sport when it's time to grow the sport. Local level guys talk about growing it till it's time to grow it. So if you're a local level guy watching this, don't be afraid to take somebody you fish against and teach them something that that they might not be good at. You might learn something from them too, because nobody has it mastered. So, and I know Patrick Walters. I hear guys in the MPFL talk about it all the time. Like he'll answer any questions for you guys that you might have, give you any advice, let guys know what's going on. So think about that, local guys. I'm calling you out specifically because we sit all the time. You don't even want to say, "Oh yeah, I caught some fish." What'd you catch them on? Oh, I soft plastic. Man, nobody's gonna go catch your fish. Was it a brush hog? Like, just tell me, was it a brush hog? Were you wacky rigging a Cinco? I don't care.
Yeah.
And then you get to that level, and they're putting you in the boat and taking you out and teaching you how to fish because they want to compete against the best, right?
So
everybody wants to win.
I'm glad you said that because my wife just told me yesterday because I got a good buddy from Lake of the Ozarks. He called and checked up on me yesterday and stuff, and she was like, "Man, he gave me some." Now that the tournament was over, now I could get some, what happened and what I should have done. Probably, put in a game plan. And she's like, though, she's like, you give so much credit, like you give so much advice. Like you go out and practice, and you come back and you all link, and Josh, you're the only one that's saying, yeah, they're over, they're firing on a brush hog or a square bill or whatever. She's like, you got to stop. But I told her, like, that's not who I want to fish against the best. Like, if, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a Patrick Walter. I'm not claiming to be a Jacob Wheeler, by no means, or Brandon Pullman. But if I ever get to that level, I want to make sure that I'm fishing against the best, and they're ready to go.
And those guys know it. That's why they help you. I mean, they have that same mentality. It's like we talk about all the time. You hear guys in local tournaments complain because a local pro jumps in. I'm telling you right now, a local pro jumps in a tournament. I'm fishing, not finishing above them. Nobody's ever going to hear the end of that.
Dude, when Mike Corbusley, I fished against him on Falls Lake a couple weeks ago. He came in with a mega bag. But he placed 13th.
Yep.
And I placed 51st. Man, I was happy about that 51st. Out of 87 people, and I touched Falls Lake in 3 years. But I'm also the same as you, Josh. Like, I don't care. I'll tell anybody. Yeah, Nirvana colored wacky rig Cinco is how I caught him on Kerr Lake yesterday. Right, I didn't catch a single fish, by the way.
That's what he threw. Though, so
yeah, that's what I threw. But my partner, that's what he caught him on. Right, and we didn't put the pieces of the puzzle together until about noon. And people ask me, "What'd you catch him on?" The stupidest bait that exists: a wacky rigged stick bait. Right.
Better competition will make you a better angler.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't ever hang my head low, and I got to keep beating myself up to make sure I stay. Because PMA, positive mental attitude, briefs well. It's how do you do that, right? So that I know that we're all excited to see the NPFL keep going this year, and we definitely want to revisit. Some of your post tournament stuff, and then some of the other stuff that the Army Outdoors team has to offer.
So you said in May. Do you go by Dan or Daniel? Daniel.
I mean,
okay,
good way to ask that about an hour and a half in the episode.
Well, he's been hawking up all the BFL questions, so this is my first chance. So your first one is you said coming up in May. What's the rest of your schedule look like for the year?
So a good thing that I get to experience is actually I travel with Josh to the NPFL.
Oh, nice.
So like Pickwick, like I was on the water all 6 days. I wasn't fishing during the tournament, but I got to do some fishing during his practice days. So I'm getting better during those times also, and I get to experience all the different waters he's going to be on.
That's awesome.
But May, Shelbyville, June, we're in Lake. We go back to Shelbyville in July. Then August is Paducah on the Ohio River.
Okay, yeah.
But Pickwick was the first river system I ever fished.
Okay.
So Paducah, Kentucky, with Ohio rivers, and it's a different river system. So you get fun on that. And then Kentucky Lake for the Super, the 2-day.
Which one are you looking forward to the most?
Kentucky Lake.
Honestly, I'm looking forward to Ring Lake.
Yeah.
The Redemption.
Redemption?
Yeah, I got one scoreboard. It was a 215. And the two other ones I caught were too small to score.
I got you.
So I'm looking for redemption on Ren Lake.
You got some hard fisheries, dude.
Mm-hmm.
They're tough. I'm from Illinois. I'm from Illinois. They're tough.
So I was gonna bring this up at some point. One, I was gonna ask how the fishing was at Knox, especially if you're driving 4 hours. But I did the best bass lake at every state a couple years ago for TikTok videos, and when I got to Illinois, it was a little difficult trying to find the best lake in Illinois. And I know Kentucky Lake, I think is rebounding and all. But I was gonna ask, how's the fishing at Knox? So my wife, if she ever gets stationed there, I can know. No, let's go someplace else.
So, like, you have a couple lakes here, Lake Nolan, Rough River,
Cumberland.
You have Cumberland, which I'm naming the smaller ones right now. So you have like Nolan, Rough River. They all got your you can lay into like a 6-pounder or so. I haven't caught a 6-pounder. I've been here for 8 months and I haven't caught one yet. Biggest one I think it was like 4.5 here and on those smaller lakes. But then I've been so busy I haven't even got to make it back down to Cumberland. You have Del Hollow, not too far.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You have I'm missing out.
But when you say not too far, what does that mean? 2 hours, 3 hours,
2 hours. Like it'd be no difference than me driving to Table Rock from Fort Leonard.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's like Fort Bragg, man. Like you can drive the Yak and Chain. You can drive to Kerr 2 hours for each of those. So
we're really spoiled being right here. There's
so many that, Josh. Like, and I don't know, Dan, if you were ever stationed at Fort Bragg, but we are in a good spot here for fishing. Yeah, it's amazing, and that's why I'll never leave. So unless somebody forces me to. So what we talked about what's next with the MPFL. We talked about what's next with the BFLs. What's next for the Army outdoor team? Since its inception with the Army fishing side of it, what's your vision and where this is going to go?
So our vision, we're talking with our battalion, with our brigade to increase our TDA to minimum 4 personnel. And the other 2 guys we're talking about bringing on are going to cover that other side of that Josh talked about, the hunting side, the white-tailed deer, the archery side, to be able to tag into those expos in that community. Because obviously we're the fishing side, for them to focus in on the hunting. But to kind of continue what we're doing, keeping it at the professional level, the NPFL, and then just keep pushing forward.
So yeah, like I was saying earlier, like my goal, like the vision is just like Daniel said, is to keep doing what we're doing. But the most importantly is that we're only 2 people. You're talking of, millions of people out there, millions of, potential recruits out there to expose them on the opportunities that the Army has to offer. So my biggest thing is expanding our team, finding a way to, bring in, 2 more, 4 more, 6 more, that, like he said, like to reach out to the other fields of outdoors.
Okay.
That's awesome, man. And how do people learn more about, is there anything specific like people can learn more?
Yeah. So like Daniel said earlier, like, because they asked, like, how long has the outdoor team been around? And this is what I tell them, like, the outdoor team's been around for 2.5 years, right? 2.5 years. So what happened was that the outdoor team partnered up with Major League Fishing about 2 years ago and was like their title sponsor for the high school and the collegiate level, right? And so that the outdoor team was more of a static display, answer questions of, hey, you want to learn about the Army? Here are some opportunities that you can do in the outdoors whenever you're stationed at A, B, C, and D. I tell everybody that, yes, the outdoor team's been around for 2.5 years, but the momentum that it's gotten, the traction that it's gotten since the last 9 to 12 months is crazy. Like, my phone don't stop. Like, people are like, holy cow, what is this about? Like you guys were just saying, like, I didn't know about this. Like,
Yeah.
It's getting the momentum. But I just forgot what I was just going to say.
He's thinking about that government phone bill. My phone hasn't stopped.
You, keep carrying that momentum. Basically.
I've hit my head a couple times on some jumps. But I totally forgot what I said.
I mean, it's 9 months, 8-9 months of your, competitors going out, which I would imagine would help bring more. If there is also static booths, would help bring more people in, because we know how it is. We go expos and all, and they'll have different groups, and there's not a lot of traffic to probably the Army Outdoors, and we see it with some of the other veterans groups that are out. There's not necessarily always a lot of traffic, and sometimes they stick them in the back someplace, right, where no one can find them, but having an actual athlete, one of the a competitor, an angler there, would probably help start the conversation a little bit more.
Absolutely.
It does, because like whenever we go to these expos, we're not wearing our OCP, we're not wearing our uniform. Like, we're civilian attire. Like, kids do not like uniform. They don't. They're scared. They're timid from them. But like, I put the jersey on, they're like, "Oh, hey, who is this?" And I'm like, "Hey, man, my name's Josh, and I do this in the Army." And they're like, "Whoa, are you kidding me?" And then I talk about my story, like how I got here over the last 18 years. But I did remember what I was talking about. Like, so because we're so new, my plan is to grow, like we were saying, but grow our at-large team, like your buddy Trey, like Charles. Like, trying to get him on this at-large team. But what I'm afraid of is, just like anything in the Army, like, you don't want to send out an op order that's incomplete. Like, you want to have everything in dial before you start pumping information out and saying, "Hey, this is what it looks like." So I'm still in the work in progress process of that. I have a couple of guys, Michael King. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to be on part of our at-large members. But yeah, so like our goal is to grow our at-large team so that they can help us.
Awesome. That's awesome. The at-large team will be like your proxy force, right? To go out there and spread more of the message and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool, man. And I'll tell you what, I'm not on the Army Outdoor at Large team, but I'll go out there and spread the message, and I do all the time, especially at these local events. So, and we are surrounded by vets and active duty in the fishing world, but there's still a large part of the people that just don't know about it. So, and that's what we're here to do. And that's why we started this podcast series, because it's extremely educational. That's what we want to do, is inform the people. And get the good word out there. Before we jump to plugs and sponsors or anything, gentlemen, you got anything?
No, I think, I've really enjoyed the conversation tonight, and I learned a lot of stuff about what's going on new in the Army with the outdoor team, and looking forward to seeing your guys' continued success, and hopefully that we'll see that at large team relatively soon. Yeah.
I'm the same. I appreciate you coming on and sharing everything, because like we've all said, we didn't know anything about it till you're here recently. So getting educated, and now we can help share that message when the folks come up, because a lot of people do come up and say, hey, thank you for your service to these guys that served, and we appreciate being a veteran owned, and so we have an opportunity to help talk about you guys and let people know, hey, maybe run down to that Army booth and have a talk with Josh and Daniel. They can tell you some really cool stuff that's going on, and some potential opportunities for you. So
I'm not a recruiter. Never been a recruiter. Don't want to be a recruiter. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm here for, is like to give them my experience and what I've learned, with the Army. But before I forget, you guys, so the Golden Knights down there at Fort Bragg, they belong to the Marketing Engagement Brigade. They have their own battalion, right? Okay. Well, they fall under the Marketing Engagement Brigade, and I happened to meet the Sergeant Major at a couple of events and some of the parachutists. But we're working on trying to get the Army Outdoor team out there to go visit some of the Golden Knights and stuff. So if that happens, I would love to link up with you guys and maybe spend a day out in Sharon Harris or Jordan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll make that happen for sure. Yeah.
Pete wants to get you on Sharon Harris.
I'll take you to my favorite lake in all of North Carolina.
Pete hates, well, I shouldn't say hate. That's such a strong word.
No, I'll say I hate.
He hates Sharon Harris, but I live 15 minutes away from Cross Point Boat Ramp and stuff. So, and that's important. Like Warriors on the Water got me into this, right, years ago, and that doesn't exist anymore. So we got to figure out other creative ways to get people, not only young kids interested in the military, especially with the opportunities that has to offer, but military people interested in bass fishing, the outdoor industry, because it has a lot to offer, especially from the mental resiliency
I was going to say that, and Trey, Ben, and myself. Obviously, your military experience and stuff you see deployed. I've seen stuff on the home front. My years as a paramedic. We realize how healing fishing is, and how it can help you cope with, the traumas of your past. So that's something we're passionate about, and trying to figure out ways to get folks on the water. So if you get down here, we'll go. I'll put my boat in that cursed Sharon Harris, I guess. We can go to Jordan.
Pete's gonna do it.
We can.
Did they kill out all the lily pads out past that bridge? I bet it's all gone now.
We'll talk about
that offline.
I can't say that. We're talking about educating people, and I'm saying
the pads are still there.
So the answer is all of the vegetation, like the hydrilla and everything, is gone. However, there is some shoreline grass growing. North Carolina Wildlife is trying to do their best at creating habitat for the fishery. Yep. They've cut down trees, and there's posted signs around the lake that say this is fish habitat, please do not disturb. So they're kind of trying to turn it into a lot of Jordan laydown scenarios that you would see. And then additionally, there are pads. Like I was out there last weekend. I didn't catch a single fish, man. I watched a 9-pounder get caught right in front of me. It was just one of those interesting situations, right? But there are pads growing from left to right in the back of some of these coves, and that's really promising. And then they do have some habitat fenced off where they're trying to replant some vegetation. And look, like it spoiled the anglers here, right, on Harris, because you could fish it anywhere, shallow, all year long. I mean, my personal best bass came out of Sharon Harris. It's few far in between that I'll catch a 7+ pound class fish out of that lake now. the bigger ones, you have a better chance on Jordan and Falls and catching them. But yeah, short answer, there's vegetation, hopefully. And you see that, right? You guys see that through fishing. Like lakes go in ebbs and flows. Like
They're cyclic.
Yeah, they're cyclic. So, but we definitely want to get you guys out there. If you're down at the Fort Bragg area, we'll get you on the
We'll
water.
get you in the
100%.
studio too, and we'll do another one of these and talk about how your seasons are going or have gone, depending on when it is.
So we appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you so much for your service. We look forward to seeing you the rest of the season, both on the BFL side and the NPFL side. And, folks, check them out. National Professional Fishing League, Master Sergeant Josh Watkins, and Bass Fishing League, Sergeant First Class Daniel Hodge. Appreciate you guys' support.
Before we log all the way off, though, why don't y'all, any other sponsors that help you guys, do this? Because it can't just be the Army. We know there's got to be some other folks that, provide discounts or help you with that gear. Go ahead and plug those, and then your own socials if you want to grow your following as well. Make sure you get those out there.
Just go ahead and thank the American taxpayers. We know.
No. Most importantly, because of who we are and what we do, we are affiliated with the United States Army. I'll talk to offline on my own. So whenever I wear the Army jersey, I belong to the Army. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I can cover here. I mean,
that's fair.
Thank my wife. Yeah, thank my wife and my family and you guys for allowing us to get out here and pitch our message and our mission. And please follow along and see how this journey is. It's a emotional roller coaster right now. So I did not have all intent. Nobody wants to get last. Nobody wants to finish in the backpack of that tournament or anything like that. But I had high hopes. Like I said, if you asked me, I had high hopes for Pickwick, but we're going to turn it around. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to Texarkana now, and we'll see what happens. So.
Heck yeah.
Stay optimistic and keep in the good fight. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.